back.
That's all good. All right.
Okay, so you have control now, Johnny?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
That's all good. All right. Andy, you here?
I'm here.
All right, cool. And we're live on YouTube.
Amazing. Can you see my screen? Johnny Z?
Can't see your screen.
I don't see your screen now.
Okay, one second. Let's change something. How about now?
Yep.
Cool. Are we ready to go? There's the live peer link set up as well.
Live peer is not working right now. I think I have the wrong stream key,
Okay.
But we are on YouTube.
No problem. It might also be because they're streaming from the UXN conference.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 18th Town Hall, September 10th, 2018. As always, we have a lot of stuff to get through, so let's just kick it off. We begin today with experimenting with peer-to-peer performance reviews with JB.
Okay, hi everyone. I am Jonathan, also known as JB, and this is the beginning of week number 9 for me at Status, which is awesome. So thanks to everyone for making my first couple of months so enjoyable. I wanted to talk today about kind of experimenting with peer performance reviews and give you some more details about what we'll be doing in the next month or so. First off, why would we experiment with peer performance reviews? Really, we People Ops and as an organization, we want to get a deeper understanding of what everyone is working on and the contributions and impacts that we're having. Traditional companies do this in a very traditional way. You won't be surprised to hear. So in a traditional company, your manager or your director would basically look at your work and they'd give you a rating or a score. It would be a kind of a secret thing normally. And then every kind of 6 or 12 months, you would repeat the process, and basically someone would decide top down how you're doing and tell you that. That wouldn't work for us, obviously. So in People Ops, we've been looking over the last few months to design something that would really fit more with the Status structure and the values and principles that we have. And so I wanted just to share a few bits and pieces around that. So we've been looking to design a system that really fits. So something that's open and transparent about what each of us are working on, not something that's closed and secret. Something that is peer-based, so all of us allowing the community members and ourselves to really provide feedback and insight onto the work that we're doing and not be reliant on a hierarchy or a manager. And then also something that is lightweight. So for those of you that have worked in kind of big organizations or other companies, you'll know that performance processes can be very long and taxing. So we're looking to make something that's very kind of lightweight and usable for everyone without being too difficult. We really want to recognize the efforts and the contribution that everyone is making and understand those better, and also give everyone the opportunity to provide and receive feedback on their work. On the screen, you can see kind of a small screenshot of something that the People Ops team has been playing around with for the last couple of weeks using Slack, and really just a lightweight way for everyone to post the work that they're doing, and for the community and the people involved here to kind of react and comment and ask questions. This is a first draft and a first attempt, so at least to our knowledge, there is no perfectly designed, set in stone way of doing performance management across an organization like this. So we're just going to try something, and we'd love your kind of feedback and help and support to do that. If you have any ideas, there's a post up on Discuss around performance management and performance reviews, and there's a newly created channel, Perf-2018. So if you're interested in this topic or you have insights or suggestions, we'd love to hear them. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be iterating a process and trying to refine how we would use a system and a tool, and looking to launch there soon after and give everyone the opportunity to share what they're doing and for everyone else to review and read about what we're all doing as a community. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. And that moves us straight into OKRs while we're talking about reviews. And Oskar.
Sure. So I thought we'd sort of do a midpoint check-in for core OKRs and just sort of so people get an understanding of where we're at, and we can do any course corrections as necessary. You can see up on the screen sort of briefly the objectives, and then I think we can go over sort of each main objective very briefly for the people who know more about it. So I think you can go to the next slide, please. Is Adam online?
Yep, I am. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay, I can go with the first one. So as far as I know, this swarm just has started. What we have done on the peer-to-peer side is that we provided some integration with LES on like basically checking the syncing on the server nodes, and also discovering LES peers from the Ethereum network. But this swarm is gonna actually make the LES working in the app. So like pretty much make sure that LES is working correctly. So even when you sync the chain, you're able to create transactions, getting new blocks, and so on and so forth. Because this is not checked. What we have done so far is that the chain is syncing, and it can sync to the newest blocks. But yeah, the rest needs to be verified. So that's pretty much what this form is gonna do. And if there are gonna be any issues, it's gonna fix them. So yeah. The next one, discovery protocol with latency under 1 second. So we pretty much implemented this protocol and tested it on our staging fleet. It's pretty good. It's much faster, and it pretty much does everything what we put in the requirements. The next step is to release this on our beta fleet, but that requires some testing, and we don't want to break the previous versions. So we plan it to do it with the next release, which is 0928, as far as I remember. So yeah, it's coming. It's probably gonna be like next or within 2 weeks. And yeah, but that's development is pretty much done around this. The next one is this incentive by layer proof of concept and spec with guarantees to provide. So for now, we were just mostly talking about it. Is we are still not really figure out like the exact plan how you want to push it forward. There's a couple of ideas, research papers about different things like proof of stake that we were looking into, and proof of custody for May servers, for example. But yeah, nothing really specific here yet. And the next one, it's Whisper spam protection. This is also ongoing. There's a proof of proof of concept that is Dimitri working on. It's pretty much gonna work this way, that it's gonna rate limit by IP or by peer and that are sending too much traffic. So you would be able, from mobile perspective, you would be able to see which peer contributes the most to your traffic, and maybe remove, like decide not to get messages from one particular public chat because it consumes too much traffic or something like that. So it could be much more, you would have like much more control over what's getting into your phone, for example. So yeah, can you get the next slide, please? And there are two more things. So the next one is 50 users running status nodes. This is mostly about integration with the app node and improving documentation. So if someone would like to run a status node, that should be super easy. Right now we are doing that in Docker on our servers, and that's fairly easy. There's just a matter of specifying a couple of options. But we need to document this. This is kind of internal knowledge right now, and we need to put that into wiki in some docs so other people can do it and pretty much run a node that joins the status network and be a part of it. Eventually want to be just part of the Ethereum network. And the final one is mail servers, discoverable mail servers. This is kind of paused right now. we got to the point where we have mail servers and they are discovered using discovery protocol. We have also a very simple smart contract that allows you to register your mail servers and just make sure that they are kind of trusted. This is also a very simple solution, but what we want to achieve here is to increase the number of mail servers that people can choose from. However, we are also thinking about like redesigning mail servers because there's more issues around mail servers architecture right now, and maybe that could result in like total re-architecturing this and rewriting mail servers pretty much. But yeah, this is not yet decided. So yeah, that would be it.
Thank you so much, Adam. That moves us into UX.
Hey, that's me. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the first one, 10% of users register an ENS name. This is currently scored at a 0 because registration isn't open to users yet. And the 60% confidence level comes primarily from the fact that 10% of users feels like an ambitious target based on both the engagement that we've seen in the past with other status features and also because of the low discoverability of the feature. Current designs have it listed in the profile screen, so it's a bit hidden. But even if we change this, I think that 5% would be a more realistic stretch target. Increase chat daily active users by 500%. This one isn't properly scored yet. Adam is actually pulling Whisper data for the past 3 months today. And we can use Whisper data combined with either historical data from Mixpanel or potentially app figures data as a proxy for our user base here. And that's it for this slide.
Cool. The first steps toward a DAO, and this is Graham.
Cool. Hi, everyone. So we're working hard on building this decentralized scaffolding for this organization. And we're making good progress on the SNT-Voting-Dapp. Gave it a score of 0.3 and a 70% confidence on that. Largely for that is we believe that if we provide hardware wallet support, namely Ledger, we'll be able to easily get 50 people to contribute. And then for the million SNT voted with, I think we're doing quite well here in the sense that the first vote got over 500,000 SNT voted on. So I think once we get hardware wallet support and people can vote with the SNT that they store on a hardware wallet, we should hit that fairly, I think fairly easily. With regards to adding topic democracy, Barry, Richard, and Ricardo are doing awesome work, and this actually applies more for the other two goals, but they're doing awesome work to try remove friction for the users, and that's namely reducing gas costs or getting away with gas costs. And what's really amazing is that each one of them are trying to do this through different methods, which just goes to show how interesting and new the space is. With regards to adding topic democracy to SNT voting, Ricardo is doing some awesome research on this in terms of how to scale it up. And but at the moment, it's very much in the research phases. So give that a 0.2 and add a 10% confidence because until we start actually applying it, we don't know. Then with regards to 5% of core contributor compensation through liquid pledges, this one needs a lot more work and we haven't really started on it. A big reason for that is we believe that the items above it we need the learnings from those items in order to start working on that. But yeah, that's our first steps towards the DAO.
Thank you, Graham. Exciting stuff. Back to Rachel for developers.
Yep, thanks. So new developer site live with 3 sections complete. This one's already at a 1.0. We finished it. You can check out the progress on docs.status.im. And now that we have a new technical writer on trial, we'll collaborate with me, you, Andy, and Julian on this. Documentation efforts are picking up again and about to get a lot better organized. A new developer can follow the build status quick start to set up status in 20 minutes or less. This score has no mathematical foundation, but basically Alex has made fixes to our build script, which unblocked a lot of the common issues people were running into with running status locally. However, we still see issues with this from time to time, and we think this is due to 2 reasons. The first could be a developer's local setup, And the second could be that changes have been made to the build script since that aren't necessarily communicated throughout the org and that we aren't actually aware of and might be causing issues. So to improve here, we need to first test the process on a range of different machines and operating systems. And then second, communicate a little bit better amongst ourselves if changes are being made to the script. And then lastly, for me, is 2 external teams using an extension. I've scored this at a 0.4. It seems like a better goal here would actually be to say that we have 2 solid extensions use cases built. I think that's a lot more reasonable by Prague, and we're very close to having 1 solid extension built now. And so 2 is a maybe, but we're also in talks with some other teams about potential integrations too. And the last one, I'll let you take.
Cool. So yeah, the last one here is 70% of DApps are optimized for status, which is a program that we're thinking of putting together for developers. We're still not entirely sure what optimized for status was. There were sort of 2 different options for us. Either if we had decided that implementing DApp curation of some kind of sorts was a priority, then that might have led to a certain kind of optimized for status program. The other option is, of course, different DApps that actually use extensions would qualify to be optimized for status and be rewarded in some way for like integrating with our native features and using our components and making a slick user experience. Obviously, both of those are sort of just blocked by technical considerations at the moment. There's further research to be done on how to do DApp curation in a more complete manner with decentralized search. And there were some interesting people in Berlin that we met and talked to about that. And extensions is definitely going to change the world. There are a lot of people are really excited about exactly how that looks, but there's still some technical considerations to be talked through. And Jan posted a really interesting thing on Discuss today about some of the sort of technical protocol considerations to go through with extensions. So if you are interested in that and how extensions are going to make developers' lives so much easier, I encourage you to read it and comment. That moves us into reducing our wall of shame, which is back to Oskar.
Sure. So first off, perfect-forward-secrecy. MVP implementation is functional, and we also have a formal spec that's been started. It's largely done by Andrea and Pedro. Some work around UX and key exchange and so on. So it's a 0.7 and fairly confident in that being achieved this quarter. As for top 10 wall of shame, there is a bunch of them and they're kind of spread throughout teams and so on. We have finished a few of them and there's multiple in progress, but it's still sort of too uncertain to tell. There's a milestone where you can look into more detail. Principles, the main thing we achieved there is that we reach consensus around them and we have more than 50% of co-contributors who signed them. And we're also starting to see use of them more broadly in teams and presentations and how people think about things, which was ultimately the goal. We're still not at 100%, but it's likely that that will only come to fruition once we are a DAO and that's sort of a specific blocker and so on. So we're not going to do anything more than that, but we're happy with having a super majority for that on that for now. As for code changes being assessed for security impact, Core's been doing a lot of amazing work there, and I heard some good stuff happening in the blockchain week in Berlin in terms of coming up with the security practices across the industry and so on. And documentations are in progress, and hopefully we'll see more of this the week to come. That's all for Wall of Shame.
Thanks, Oskar. So into some of our non-tech updates, and back to Jonathan for welcoming a new core contributor.
Cool, yeah, so welcome, Arseny. So hopefully we'll have many more new joiners, but welcome to everyone that's joined recently. We are still hiring, so lots of open roles. We'll be refreshing the priority order of the open roles that we're working on and have some updates on how we're doing recruiting in a future town hall. If we could pop to the next slide, please. Thank you. So three broader updates. One, so Prague. I am super excited about Prague and meeting everyone in person. You should start please to book your transport for Prague. and add to the spreadsheet so we can ensure that we have the right number of hotel rooms and all of the logistics sorted. So any questions, please ask in the People Ops channel, but please start booking your transport for Prague. Code of conduct. So many of you will have seen that we refreshed our code of conduct and put it in our new handbook. Please do check it out. The code of conduct isn't set in stone, so if there's something missing or there's an important addition that you can recommend, again, please do contact us. In the absence of like traditional management or hierarchy, it's really up to us and the community to kind of enforce these standards ourselves and to set these standards. So again, a call out that if you see anything that kind of doesn't adhere to the code of conduct, please do call it out. And then thirdly, and really excitingly, recruiting updates. So we'll talk about this more in the future, but we are beginning to test more non-traditional methods of recruiting. So traditional being you apply to Status with a CV, you interview, do a round of interviews, and then we make you an offer. We're really starting to push those boundaries and try different methods of assessing people, both through trials and part-time work and scrapping interviews in some cases altogether. So just to kind of call out that you'll see kind of different weird and wonderful ways of joining and contributing to Status as full-time core contributors.
As always, the more the merrier, right? And that moves us into Status Studio and our educational goals with Akshi.
Hi, everyone. I'll go through this quite fast. In the last couple of weeks, we've done we pushed on three major topics. The first one is that we created an educational content map or graph that essentially shows the relationships between various education topics and content that will be on Status Studio. You can take a look at that. It's the link is on the right-hand side column. It's gotten some really good feedback from technical experts here at Status. So it's looking very robust, and it will inform defining our personalized and customized learning paths for the various users that come to Status Studio for education. The second piece that we pushed on heavily was creating a poll that was shared at ETHBerline, and we got 8 responses so far to it. I will be sharing the summary of those responses to those questions from the survey on the Status channel this week. But all in all, it looks like there is a lot of enthusiasm from experienced developers as well as new developers for a product like Status Studio, which is great. There was some good feedback in there as well around prioritizing the various features that Status Studio is planning to have both on the IDE side as well as educational paradigms. So that's something I'll share. It's a pretty high level survey, so it should be shareable with as many developers as we can share it with, even outside ETHBerline. So we will be posting it on our social channels as well. The link for that is also on the right-hand side. So would request everyone to broadcast it and share it at events that you might be attending, workshops, etc., where developers might be the primary audience, or even on your own personal socials. That'll really help us out a lot. And the third big push was recruiting for the studio team. So we are still looking to fill a senior UX UI role, the front-end developer role, and the tech content writer role. So if you have referrals, please send them over. You can send them over to me. My email is listed there, or to Barbara, Harry, or JB, who are working on this as well. In the coming weeks, the focus will shift on further fleshing out and detailing these personalized learning algorithms or paths that we were talking about on Status Studio for education, but also shifting gears a little bit and fleshing out in more detail the IDE MVP requirements and tech specs and things like that, and what's needed to be built there. We'll continue to brand Studio. I think Ned and the marketing team have already begun on that, and we'll start executing on some of the high-level marketing plan for Studio for the rest of 2018 as well. That's it on my end.
Thank you so much. Actually, as always, a really, really great update. And I do encourage everybody to share that link out. It's important that we gather developer feedback from as many diverse places as we can to make this a complete experience. It takes us into marketing with Johnny and Sean.
Thanks, Andy. So we had two campaigns running, or we just wrapped one. We ran a digital hackathon with Bounty One. The goal of this hackathon was to create an app that can be used for an event, right? So, sorry, a DApp that can be used in an event using Embark to try and help promote our hackathon, but then also raise awareness for Embark. And we saw some really good responses there. So it's a nice way to tap into the developer community there. You can see some stats down at the bottom. Over 1,000 views, 13 users. I think in total there are around 10 submissions, and the team's reviewing those now, and we'll announce the winners shortly. And then last week we launched a joint campaign with the Gitcoin team. It's 60 bounties over the course of 1 month. And the incentive here is if all bounties are completed at the end of the month, we'll issue an SNT bonus to everyone who's completed a bounty. And we launched with 13 bounties last week, all defined by the Embark team. And within 6 hours, work had started on all of them, which is really encouraging to see. So we'll be announcing the next batch of bounties shortly. So that's exciting. Sean?
Cool. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay, so on to the community competition. So yeah, really awesome. We're at the halfway point right now. So the first stage of the campaign or the competition was to actually get all the community entries first and foremost. So again, this is all being led by Hutch. Is doing an amazing job on this, but then also Jessica Angel from the art community. She's been doing an amazing job as well, rallying the community behind this. So we had a total of 191 design submissions, which was amazing. Really blew us away. In terms of other metrics so far, we've had 539 mentions of CommuniTEE or proof of where, which are kind of our two hashtags that we ran for the competition. Obviously the reach was 3.2 million and the total engagements. The other piece that was really awesome was that we actually saw entries across a broad spectrum of countries, which I think compared to our meme competition even, we got to see some designs come through from Korea and China and even our Spanish speaking community. So that was really awesome, but that's only the first phase of it. So the first phase was the design phase. Then we went into the voting phase, which actually kicked off at ETHBerline. There's kind of two elements to voting. One was a voting DApp, which there was a bit of confusion around. It was meant to be primarily for the ETHBerline participants to vote on the spot. Some people also voted that weren't at ETHBerline, but there was that element. But then for everyone else, voting still continues. So please be sure to like and retweet your favorite design. We will be amplifying them and like retweeting and promoting the finalists in the next day or two. So if you haven't seen the finalists on your socials, you'll see them shortly. Voting closes on the 14th of September. So be sure to get in and like and retweet your favorite design. And then obviously we'll go ahead and print them. On to the next one.
I just quickly, before we move on, want to shill the design from Iran, which is a psychedelic status twister. It's made by Yalu. Is definitely the best shirt in that design. But anyway, let's go on.
Okay.
There it is. Look at that.
Yeah. Well, here you go. So if you wanted to see the designs, we've got two categories. So the first one is designs that are based on our values. So it's a combination of, some of these you'll see they're based on our values. Other ones will just be based on our branding in general. But you'll see the 5 here. So some really cool designs. Jessica Angel helped narrow these down, and now it's entirely up to the community. We will choose the most engaged T-shirt as the people's vote will be the choice that we print. On to the next one. And then this was, Andy's going to hate me saying it, that crypto culture, something that was a bit more broader, allowing for a bit more, creativity, flexibility. I thought Andy would particularly like the Africa one, but yeah, some really cool ones here as well. So again, we have two categories. We'll be printing the finalists, the winners in both categories. So please be sure to get in your votes.
I mean, obviously I love the Africa one, but still, vote for Bonacci, guys.
Cool. Now on to ETHBerline. So I am going to give a lot of credit to a lot of people because there was a lot of people that were involved in this. Obviously, everyone did a great job with all the content contribution. Everyone was just busy on Twitter posting content. So that did wonders for us. We also had, Hutch identified Milan, a member of our community, who became our roving reporter. So taking the lessons from India, we applied it for ETHBerline, and Milan did an amazing job. Kim and Hutch and myself, were busy kind of working with Johnny and Milan the entire weekend trying to get our content pipeline going. So that was an awesome effort there. So in total, what we saw was we saw a total of 641 status mentions, which was up on top of India, which is awesome. The total impressions off the back of those mentions was 5.4 million, and the total engagements of status-related content was 1,766. So in total, we had around 38 pieces of content across ETHBerline, and that wasn't actually all from the status channel. That was a culmination of all the different community members and core contributors that were there. So that was really awesome. On to the next one. Sorry, I'm gonna stop talking immediately after this. So we did so halfway through the week. So it was a very busy week last week. Halfway through the week, we actually hosted a AMA on WeChat with a community group / media group in China called UniTimes. So they were a sponsor of the Ethereum Industry Summit, which is what Oskar will speak to next. And, as a piece of promotion in the build up to that, we actually hosted about a 1 hour AMA with a developer community in China, and it was all done through WeChat. So huge shout out to Steven, our part-time community manager in China, who really helped us queue that up as well. So total number of participants was 580, but then there were actually other WeChat groups that were also running in parallel that were asking questions. So in total, there were another 2,074 members as well. If you want to actually see what the questions were, we actually have them in English, or if you want to flex your simplified Chinese, jump in and you can have a look at it there as well. I think Oskar is going to speak to ETHIS.
Cool. Yeah. So thanks, Sean. So this weekend, there was a conference in Hong Kong around scalability and industry integration. It was around 1,000 people. And it was a kind of a mix of Ethereum 2.0 researchers and sort of, I guess, more traditional industry. What was interesting about it is that I feel like in Asia, there's sort of a completely different blockchain ecosystem that's quite mature in terms of integration with banks and governments and these kinds of things. And it was interesting to see sort of firsthand these people and what they're working on. So if anyone gets a chance to go to Asia on any of these conferences, I would recommend it. And I believe they will upload videos later. I also give a speech on sort of secure user experience and Nimbus and developer ecosystem and these kinds of things. That's it for me.
Thank you, Oskar. It's the Hackathon and Johnny.
All right. So here is a new design that Ned, Michael, Hazel, and Christian have been working on. It's a new website, some new branding, and we're getting ready to launch this at the end of the week. And really excited about this because it'll really start to pull the event, the look and feel and the ethos and just the vibe of everything together. The next steps for this is localization into any language, really. We'll put out a call to the community to localize it, and then we'll push that to production. And then just working with the team this week to identify various experiences and happenings and really to come up with something that will enrich the experience for everyone there. And if you have an idea, this goes out to anyone. If you have an idea for something you'd like to do, share, or see at the hackathon, please ping me or anyone in the hackathon channel, and we can work with you to make that happen.
Yeah, let's make the happenings the most happening thing that happens at the hackathon.
And then a quick reminder. So DevCon 4 is coming up, obviously, and the next wave of tickets is set for release 1 a.m. GMT +2. So whatever time zone you're in, please remember to use the promo code that's been shared out in the DevCon 4 channel and try and buy your ticket. Last time tickets went out or sold out extremely quickly, so we should all be ready. There should be a reminder in your calendar as well.
Cool. I'll jump in for this one. again. Okay, cool. So yeah, just a quick recap. So obviously with any kind of ETH global event, we see our overall mentions increase quite dramatically. But on top of that, we had the ETHIS event, which actually did get some coverage. I couldn't really understand much of it, but if you can actually see on the bottom right-hand side, there was some coverage of Oskar's presentation, which was awesome to see some press coverage there. So yeah, so overall we increased by 47%. The great thing to see on the bottom two is that in previous weeks or in previous town halls, the past two, we were on a downward projection on our owned channels, and there was some learnings there in terms of the frequency of publishing, and we had been impacted from an algorithm standpoint. Fortunately, from an impression standpoint, we've hit flat, and from an engagement standpoint, we've actually gone up 34%. Since the previous fortnight. So that's a huge win, and it's just a testament to all the great work that everyone's doing across the board. And ETHBerline was just awesome because we really had a lot of conversation happening there. So great.
Cool. Thanks, Sean. Web refresh with Johnny.
Ned's going to jump on this one. Ned, you're on.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update where we got to on the web refresh plan. So we basically broke this down into kind of 3 phases. With the first phase, we're going to try to get accomplished kind of like pre-hackathon. And that kind of just entails in the first phase, taking a lot of the existing design elements that have been created that are really working, that Andre and Dennis had worked very hard on. So we want to leverage a lot of that language and unify the whole brand ecosystem together. So very simply start to be able to differentiate things and see how everything works together on these 2 platforms. So we can also then test React and Ghost together and see what works best for everybody. And then in the second phase, we kind of want to continue the auditing of these tools and slowly start to upgrade them for the future. And the third phase would be using those upgraded tools and languages and components and UX interfaces to really shape this new visual language that we can scale for the future. So essentially, we all have collectively in design been looking at these current principles and applying them to our own design principles and thinking about how we can scale that up for everybody to use. So that's the plan.
One added note on this, Michael shared out a doc requesting content from the team, from every individual team, to define their own principles, and those principles will ultimately live on the website. So Michael, if you can share that doc out again in maybe the marketing channel, and then we can all get around to that.
Cool. Yeah, I think that might be define the principles as they apply to our overall principles. But
exactly.
Yeah, that doc will make it clear. We move into UX and UXR with Pat.
Thanks, Andy. So we just wanted to give a quick update on some of the work that actually went on last week, as everyone has been doing. Of course, the design team usually likes to meet when there's kind of like a major event that's in Europe or elsewhere where we can all get together. So we spent about 3 days last week diving into a couple topic areas that we wanted to do together face-to-face. So Dennis, for example, looked at some of his hardware wallet work that he's most recently been working on. We did a little bit of a review of that. Another example is Hester led a kind of a cool brand and personality exercise where we really took a look at, or really asked ourselves, what are status users, or who are our status users, or what are some of the attributes that make up a status user for a little bit more depth. And so that was some sort of like interesting results from that. And then to mix things up, we got an intro to the Whisper protocol from Eric. He came in and did about a 90-minute kind of session on it with a Q&A session, plus some informational insights, which was really, really helpful. So kudos to Eric for doing that. And then also on Thursday, we had 6 user study sessions where we took a look at some proposed redesigns for chat commands and inline messaging, which we plan to have a debrief and kind of a results share out later this week. So this is quite interesting insights from that. So next up as well, we all plan to try and, or most of us are trying to get together for Prague as well in the DevCon. So we'll have another sort of meetup at that point. as I mentioned, the UXR insights are coming either later this week or next. And as Ned mentioned, we have a big task looking into a web refresh and a new design system.
Thank you, Pat.
Going on.
Yeah, my apologies for the messages coming in over your speaking there. This is coming to you live from the UXN conference in Berlin, so hence the slight interruption. Anyway, that moves us into Infra and Tooling with Jakob. Is Jakob?
Yeah, he's not here.
Okay.
Second, briefly. Yes, there's been some work around Jenkins and parallel builds up. Also load balancing for the Swarm cluster and some analytics setup. New cluster, started work on deterministic builds for setup. And then coming up is Jenkins tested builds on Windows and some more Jenkins stuff. It's been a lot of work on Jenkins, but it's really shaping up. So great work, Jacob, and everyone else who chimed in with Igor and Pedro and a bunch of others.
Yeah, definite kudos to Igor for helping out. It's been a long process, but well worthwhile. So that moves us into chat and Pedro.
Hi. Yeah, so last couple of weeks, we were mostly focused on PFS and helping out with the hardware wallet. There were also, in parallel, some work done in several non-user facing improvements that will help with, for instance, testing. It's something that we saw the last couple, and I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, we saw issues with mail server, but it wasn't easy to get to the logs and to test different fleets. So that's something we implemented under the advanced section. So it will be much easier from now on to debug lower level stuff. And we also cleaned up configuration from status go. There were many places where defaults were living in, and several different ways of configuring the status go. So this was all unified in a single way. So it will be much easier for new contributors to figure out how things work on that. Also, there was this work on chat badges and the ability to scroll to the unread or to the bottom of the chat. It hasn't been merged yet because there's some problem with restoring scroll position on Android. So we're not yet happy with the workaround that we've had to apply. So still in progress. Yeah, that's it for chat team.
Cool, thank you so much. And perfect-forward-secrecy from Andrea. If he's around, otherwise maybe Pedro can just talk us through a little bit more about what's happening with PFS.
Yes, so we've been working on implementing.
Sorry, Pedro.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
So we've been working on PFS. The new thing that we've been working on is multi-device and group chat support. So that at the encryption layer, so that user can seamlessly use desktop and a mobile client. So that's something that we're working on. So that's kind of been done. There are a few bugs to fix, but the main bulk of work has been done. We're continuing with the documentation. New stuff will be documented as we go along. This week and next week, we'll be focusing on basically pushing out basically a rough version of group chats as they were before, but using PFS, which allows us basically to test PFS. It's going to be feature toggled in a safe way, essentially. Messages that are sent through this new group chat, which will only be enabled in nightlies, would use PFS. Yeah, that's all.
That's really, really incredible news. Not only is perfect-forward-secrecy part of our wall of shame and really important to like the ongoing privacy push that we're trying to achieve with Status, but also the fact that you're bringing back group chats just deserves absolutely massive kudos. Thank you so much for that work, Andrea. And that leads us into wallet and accounts. The first is ENS usernames with Ricardo.
Hey,
So the progress in the last weeks was that we added slashing conditions to the registrar that would protecting the smart contract for illegal usernames, that we decided a minimal username length, some reserved words, and to be only alphanumeric characters, so we don't have any confusions with similar names. There was a full refactor of the registrar contracts to simplify the features with these latest changes that was the slash mechanism. We added support to approve and call of the mini-me token on the contract and the UI. So right now you don't need to approve the token first and then register. You can do everything in just one typing the password only once in the status UI. We finished the full coverage of the tests of the smart contracts. And the UI also has now the optimized for status in top. So if the user is not using status, it should suggest user to install status. The next steps will be the review and the final of an external auditor. We are having some problems to find some auditors. Seems like they are all busy. So if someone knows some suggestions of who we can talk with to find some reviewers. We are also going to do some internal audit with the tools suggested by these auditors that rejected there is an auditor that did a lot of scripts that can help us internally auditing this contract. Also, we need the integration of ENS usernames lookup in the status app. So it's someone from the status app want to join the swarm to integrate this. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just looking up in the contract, the ENS contract, the username. They hit there and then resolve it. So yeah, I think it's this.
Cool. Thank you so much, Ricardo. Yeah. One of the key findings, I think, of the UX testing sessions that we've been doing, particularly in Berlin around this week, has been just how much people struggle with randomly generated names, and having easily accessible usernames is going to make a real difference to onboarding. And it's another really exciting thing that's been going on. And one of the features that I just love of working at Status is that we can broadcast from Berlin and then get updates from Intrepid smart contract explorers in the Brazilian rainforests, and it's just one of the neat features of Status and what happens here. So thanks for that. That moves us.
The usernames would help to user that wants to identify themselves. So if user don't want to identify themselves, they can still keep themselves anonymous, right?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, as much room for expression and freedom as you want. That's the whole point. So we moved to 170 and wallet improvements with Goran. If he's around, otherwise we'll just skip the slide for this week. Cool, we're missing Goran, not a problem. Into voting 279 with Graham.
Cool. So this week, we have a survey ready to go. So a big thanks to Patrick, Sean, and Hutch for coordinating that. We're going to be sending out to 100 people, and it's going to be in 5 different languages and pays 50 SNT per response. Basically, we're looking to find out what are the big topics that holders of SNT care to vote on. And then something we investigated as well is how can we make voting more attractive? We thought it'd be pretty neat if you could get a collectible, so that's like a participation type reward. So to research that, we had a meeting with the Pixora team, myself and Barry. And what we found out was at this very moment, it's probably going to be, too much to kind of take what they have at the very instance to bring into the voting DApp. So we think further out the line, we can do that. But in the meantime, we can definitely do some sort of concierge MVP, similar to what the marketing team did by pre-buying a bunch of NFTs and then giving them out randomly to people who participate in the vote. So we think we're going to be trying it out like that. Otherwise, had an interesting 2 weeks reviewing designs and user flows with Maria and Patrick. And what we realized is that where someone keeps their SNT has a huge impact on the UX. And so the first thing that we have to figure out is better handling of allowing users who hold their SNT in, say, a Ledger wallet, for example, to use the voting DApp and partake in status governance. So that's the first feature we're going to be working on. Otherwise, Barry kindly put up a GitHub repo for the smart contracts and the voting DApp. And why is that important? Well, what we realize is that in order to maximize work done on this, really need to be taking advantage of community involvement and participation. So we're going to be attempting to get some bounties up for voting DApp work. And yeah, that's essentially what we're going to be looking at next week. Gain some bounties, gain some survey results, updating designs, and hopefully gain some feedback, and researching one other thing through the flows investigations with Marie and Patrick is we realized the best possible flow, the easiest user experience is that if a user has status on their mobile app and has SNT and Ethereum in their wallet, it's a cinch. It's a beautiful experience. They can always go to a status chat group to ask questions. So on that note, we're going to be researching how to bring more of these governance features into chat, starting with sussing out how we can get the voting DApp to work with extensions. And yeah, that's the week ahead. The 2 weeks.
Thank you, Graham. Such flow, much future, which moves us into DApps and developers with Rachel again.
Nice. Hey. So on the user side, of these past 2 weeks, a couple updates. If you own a piece of super rare art, you can now see those tokens in your status wallet. Thanks to Julian, we've added support for that token because, first of all, digital art is dope. And second of all, we wanted to support Pixura as the newest member of our incubator program. Andre is working on a very cool feature to pop up a chat modal from the browser. So that will generate a whisper topic for each DApp, which means that you can imagine if you're using CryptoKitties, you'll be able to open a public chat about CryptoKitties directly from the DApp. And from there, you can chat with other kitty owners or breeders. So we like this idea to help build a community around DApps and facilitate communication between users in a decentralized way. Security update from Alex. We're also working on implementing MetaMask's phishing detect to protect users from known crypto phishing websites. And we're also going to be implementing Google's Safe Browsing API to warn users against other known scam websites. That's all a work in progress. For developers, the Web3 opt-in flow, if you are a developer who's ready to test out implementation from EIP 1102, that can be toggled on from development mode inside status now. It turns out that the update actually conflicted with the existing standard. So by making it optional from development mode, you should be able to test the new opt-in in a controlled way without breaking your existing Web3 implementation. Also, our first version of ENS resolution in the browser is in production. With this, we currently only support IPFS-hosted sites where the resolver utilizes the content field. But we're participating in discussion about a more comprehensive standard for this that would also support Swarm with other browsers. And then for the next 2 weeks, finishing up that work that I just mentioned above, and then switching our focus back to extensions and developer tools. Our big goal is to finish the first full extension use case, which will be a chat command. And a great example of that we're also going to implement is going to be sending your NFTs within chat. After speaking with some developers at Berlin, we feel validated that there's definitely a demand for this kind of command. We're also going to likely be adding a QR code scanner API. This is coming from requests of our incubator team at Block Party, but we know it's also been requested by a couple of other developers, so we'll do a bit of research into other use cases for that as well.
Thank you, Rachel. Into Embark with Yuri, who we might also have.
Right. So this last weeks we launched the Bunny campaign, as it was already mentioned. We also implemented support for the EIP 1102, which is coming in the next version of Embark. So this way, DApps generated with Embark will be compatible both with existing solutions and future solutions, namely with MetaMask and other DApp browsers. We also are revamping the Swarm support. We're creating a JavaScript library to support the new Swarm APIs. We are finalizing the code coverage. And this last 2 weeks, we've also been doing a lot of bug hunting for 3.2. So that's been taking a bit longer than we thought, but will be worth it. for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be releasing 3.2, and we're also going to be doing more bounties. That's it this week.
Cool. Thank you so much, Yuri. Into desktop with Vitaly.
Hey guys. So in the past 2 weeks, we've been following a couple of attack vectors, a couple of long-standing projects that are either complete or nearing completion, or the macOS code citing, and lots and lots of various Jenkins and build pipeline improvements. In relation to that, there is some work done on the improving of test coverage using spec-generated testing. Also, Max has completed breakpath integration, which is a nice little tool that helps with crashes reporting. There have been also some macOS build fixes because we only support macOS for now. And on the code front, not related to packaging and distribution, so on the React Native desktop, and there is some ongoing work on the chat window, actually the underlying component for the chat window, in order to make it more performant and in order to fix some issues that have been plaguing it for some time, like jumping and some clicking, click on press event handler processing problems. And we've also had just recently a very first external team, chat team contribution from Andre on some profile name and picture editing PR. So thanks very much for that. We also plan to work together with Julian on incorporating some extensions work, so that to have some extensions that could be developed in order to target both mobile and desktop platforms at once from the get-go. And generally, our plans for the next 2 weeks include continuing working on the scroll view and React Native upgrades, so that we unblock some of the PRs that have been waiting for the desktop upgrade to 0.56 on mobile. Again, completing our test coverage projects and more bug fixing, because we still have some issues that are there in to-do list. As you see, there are still 10 issues in to-do list. Yeah, and I don't know when this will happen exactly, maybe 4 or 6 weeks. Hopefully we could manage to do this before our offsite meeting in Hackathon at the end of October. We would like to move for Status Desktop to become as a preferred solution for as an internal chat solution instead of Slack. So first time, initially this will be a very, maybe not very, but quite a bare bones experience compared to Slack, but we promise that we'll keep adding more and more features so that it's a worthy and better alternative. Yeah, so that's my update.
One thing that we're going to discuss tomorrow in our weekly meeting is to use desktop on the chat team for daily development. So that should also help uncover pain points.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to dog food your own tools, and I know that Chad is on a flight at the moment, but he would definitely want me to say that there are whispers of a revolution moving through Slack, and we've got to get over to desktop. So all core contributors, prepare yourself for that. See if you can go to our Nightly's page, download the images that are there at the moment, play around with them, see if you have any issues, give us your feedback, and that's really going to help the process as we move this along. And also desktop and extensions, oh my. So that moves us into hardware wallets with Guy Louis.
Yes, hi everyone. So for the hardware wallet Lite, there's been actually quite a lot of work in the past 2 weeks. And we are in this important step where we define exactly the product with a detailed UI flow that define all the exact screens and their content, taking into account all the card states and the events that can occur. So this effort is ongoing. Dennis is doing a real great work putting that down. And it really is a team effort to take into account all the constraints we have, whether they are about technical constraints, user experience, or content. So what's next is we want to reach a first team-approved version of this UI flow in the coming days, run user testing on it, make the necessary changes to the flow so that we can actually start the implementation, the software implementation. And we also want to define the packaging. As for the Android software implementation, we have now a first prototype for the installation that's running, meaning we can actually upload a card with the applet through NFC. So congratulations to Andrea and Michele for that. We want to now finalize that. We have some stability issues to fix. I have now a call for participation and feedback here, since we have an architecture decision to take. That's actually going beyond the hardware wallet scope. I'm not going to go through all details now. What we have to decide is which derivation path we use from our master secret to get the whisper key. And when the user has a hard wallet, which derivation path we use to get a database key. So this path, at least the whisper one, is used even when there's no hard wallet. So this is really a team effort where we need some consensus to make a decision, and it's not a choice that will be easy to revert. So please go check Michele post in Discuss about this, provide some feedback so that we can reach a consensus and move forward. As for sourcing, we had meetings last week, actually, with the top 3 suppliers of Java cards, which are Gemalto, NXP, and IDEMIA. So we're doing good progress there. And our one priority for the coming 2 weeks is to evaluate the NXP one, which seems to be quite promising. Hardware Wallet Pro, the goal, our current goal is to evaluate the options we have for the main chip that we'll use. So we met last week with both ST Microelectronics and NXP. And what we're looking at in priority is the ability we'll have to use open source software on the chip, the level of physical protections we get against attacks, and of course the power consumption. So what's next? We'll continue with this effort, get some documentation from NXP that they promised to us, get an actual demo board from ST Micro for our target chip, which is the STM32WB, and also understand the microchip offer. Microchip is another chip supplier, by meeting with them. So yeah, that's it for hard wallets.
Thank you so much, Guy-Louis. And that moves us into our final section, research with Mami.
So on Numbus for the past 2 weeks, we were mostly focused on, let's say, infrastructure. So we had a DevOps autumn cleanup with everything aligned, fast, cached, and manageable by everyone in the team. We also realized for implementing the Byzantium fork that we couldn't use any of the C or C++ library due to licensing. So we are going to implement from scratch the ZK-SNARKs cryptography that are used in some precompile. It will probably take a month or so. We also had a lot of improvement in our blockchain state. So adding the upstream test suite to Nimbus and also enabling reconstruction of the blockchain state from peers and some steps toward contract call and creation. Then we have also started on the LESS protocol, and on the research side, on the ETH 2.0, simulating proof-of-stake votes. And we also detected some design issues that will be reported to the Ethereum Foundation next Thursday for the sharding call. So for the next 2 weeks, we have lots of goals, but mostly advancing on contact calls, which are blocking RPCs.
Thank you so much, Memi. Really interesting stuff as always. And that moves us into Q&A and anything from the audience. Johnny, is there anything in the YouTube channel or here?
No direct questions, but there was a comment about sound notifications within the app. If there's an update on that.
There should be. I know that there was a pull request that was merged. I feel like it's 5196, but does Pedro, do you know?
Yeah, as far as I know, it should be working. It should have been released.
I've been getting them if you get a direct message and you have sound on.
But if the questioner is not getting them, then feel free to either shake your phone and report through Instabug or suggest an improvement in our help center in the app. That's the easiest way to make sure that we can Instabug is the easiest way to make sure that we can grab the logs and see if there's something going wrong if you're not receiving sound push notifications.
The one thing I wanted to add before we finish is there's a Discuss post about tweaking the format of the town hall. So after almost 20 town halls, our team size has grown a lot, and so there's a lot of other things that we can. There's a lot of updates. There's a lot that people want to tell us and things like that. So what we're planning on doing is splitting it up so that we give teams more of an opportunity, maybe 15 to 20 minutes with a lot less frequency, and that allows teams to have Q&A. It allows them to, show demos. And for those that haven't seen it, there's a Discuss post, and you can see the details. And from next town hall, we'll be implementing that change. So hopefully we can stick within the hour and start to give people a lot more kind of depth on each topic. If you have any thoughts on that, then obviously leave some comments and discuss. Otherwise, from next week, from fortnight from now, you'll see a tweaked up town hall.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that personally, and with no further questions, I think that brings to an end our 18th one, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week for a new and improved version of the Town Hall.
Thanks a lot, Andy.
Cheers.
Thanks, Andy.
Cheers.
Cheers.